In 1969, Richard Nixon becomes President of the United States, a country torn by the Vietnam War. The decade of psychedelia comes to an end, while civil rights for women, Afro-Americans, and the sexually diverse are proclaimed. The Beatles record their last album, and one of the members of the Rolling Stones dies. In Hollywood, reality exceeds fiction, and man conquers the North Pole on foot. The internet is born, and the space race reaches its climax. Time Capsule, 1969. By the end of the 60s, winds of change have unleashed more than one storm. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, John and Robert Kennedy, Che Guevara, and many more have been killed during the decade. On April 28, 1969, the President of France, Charles de Gaulle, demits after losing a referendum where his political prestige is not at stake. In 3 previous popular referendums, he bypassed politicians, elected parliament, and won. But this time, he is defeated, and true to his word, presents his resignation. The year before his resignation, a strong social unrest in students, workers, and laborers, overwhelmed by tedium, authoritarianism, hierarchies, and reigning conservatism, gives rise to the famous May 1968 events in France. Realizing the failure of the anti-riot forces, de Gaulle cleverly dissolves the cabinet, led by his prime minister, Georges Pompidou, and calls for parliament elections. On June 30th, 1968, the French cast their vote, and de Gaulle achieves a resounding victory due to an alliance between his followers, right-wing forces, and by invoking the specter of communism, anti-nationalism, and the power of agitators. De Gaulle's victory, just a month after the enormous political and social crisis, shows that May of '68 was a social revolution more than a political one. It brought about important cultural, social, and moral changes. On November 9th, 1970, de Gaulle dies in his sleep. He is remembered for having defeated the Nazi terror and for the class and elegance exhibited when he retires. On April 17, 1969, the secretary of the Czechoslovakia Communist Party, Alexander Dubček, is ousted from office. Dubček is the reformist leader who from January 5th to August 20th, 1968, during the Cold War, carried out a period of political liberalization known as the Prague Spring. As creator of the project, Socialism with a Human Face, Dubček tries to reduce totalitarianism within the party and allows its members to act according to their conscience. He gives them freedom to reject any state policy and allows ordinary citizens to openly criticize the government. He also eliminates the censorship of newspapers, which the press plays to their advantage by reporting cases of corruption and abuse of power. He also supports a multi-party system. Russians feel threatened by these measures and brand them as capitalistic, in order to stop the Czechs and Slovaks from moving away from their control. On the night of August 20th, 1968, the Warsaw Pact countries invade Czechoslovakia with more than 200,000 troops and 2,000 tanks. Inevitably, in April 1969, Dubček is forced to resign as first secretary, and in 1970 is expelled from the Communist Party and made a forestry official in Bratislava. The Prague Spring ends, and Czechoslovakia recedes into a harsh winter. On February 4th, 1969, Yasser Arafat is appointed head of the PLO. 2 months earlier, on December 13th, 1968, his unknown face appears on the cover of Time magazine.